1,000, thank you. 1,000 at 1,000, say 1,100. Can I hear 1,100?
I've no wish to quarrel with you, Finch, but speaking as a representative of Her Majesty's Armed Forces,
You've heard their voices 1,000 times. Sean Connery's drawl Audrey Hepburn's precise, floating vowels. Roger Moore's polished aristocratic cadence. What you were never told is that almost none of it was real. In the golden era of Hollywood and the British entertainment industry, your voice wasn't just how you spoke. It was your class status, your casting category, and your commercial value, all decided in the first 30 seconds of an audition. A regional dialect, a working class accent, a European inflection, any of these could end a career before it started. What these 12 icons did to survive that system is one of the least told stories in Hollywood history, and we're opening the vault on all of it today. If you're new to this channel, we cover the real history of old Hollywood, not the polished studio version. Let's get into it. Sean Connery. Before he was the definitive cinematic spy, Sean Connery was Thomas Sean Connery, a working-class young man from the tenements of Fountainbridge, Edinburgh. He had worked as a milkman and a laborer. His natural speech was a thick, heavy Scottish dialect, and in the early 1950s, that dialect was a professional ceiling. The British entertainment industry of that period was dominated by received pronunciation, the clinical, class-coded accent of the English upper class. Connery's raw regional tongue kept him confined to the fringes of the stage. He was introduced to theatrical mentors who worked to smooth the roughest edges of his Scottish brogue. The goal was not to make him sound English. It was to engineer a marketable mid-Atlantic masculine drawl, a voice that projected worldliness and sophistication in a way American casting directors could immediately process. When he was cast as James Bond in Dr. No, director Terence Young took the vocal transformation a step further. Young brought Connery to elite tailors and high society restaurants, teaching him to speak with a smooth, calculated cadence that matched his expensive suits. The result was a linguistic illusion, an accent that sounded elite and dangerous while being completely detached from the reality of his working-class Edinburgh upbringing. The public celebrated it as effortless Scottish charm. It was actually the product of deliberate, calculated work, designed specifically to break through the industry's class barriers. 2. Roger Moore. Roger Moore is remembered as the quintessential suave English gentleman. He was born in Stockwell, South London, the son of a police constable in an ordinary working-class neighborhood. His natural childhood speech was shaped by the local London dialect. In the 1930s and 1940s, that accent automatically locked actors into minor roles. Cockney villains, servants, comic relief. Leading men did not come from Stockwell. To break out, Moore entered the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, where the enforcement of received pronunciation was absolute. RADA operated like a clinical machine, systematically stripping working-class students of their regional inflections. Moore was trained to reshape his mouth movements, eliminate his natural London vowels, and adopt a highly polished, aristocratic tone that signaled wealth and prestige. That manufactured voice became a gilded cage he inhabited for the rest of his professional life. It secured him elite leading roles in The Saint and eventually the James Bond franchise. To international audiences, particularly American ones, Moore's voice was the ultimate advertisement for British high society, erasing all evidence of his Stockwell origins. The tragic dimension of Moore's career is that his vocal transformation was so complete that the public forgot he was ever performing. He became trapped by his own persona, rarely given the opportunity to demonstrate his actual dramatic range. He traded his authentic identity for franchise fame, and the industry accepted nothing less. 3. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn's voice is celebrated as one of the most uniquely elegant sounds in cinema history. It was entirely manufactured, and it was built on top of wartime trauma. Born in Belgium to a Dutch baroness and a British father, her early linguistic landscape was a chaotic mix of French, Dutch, and English. During World War II in the occupied Netherlands, she experienced severe malnutrition and significant psychological strain that deeply affected her development and her speech patterns. When she arrived in post-war London to pursue ballet and acting, her English carried a heavy, non-distinct European inflection. In the conservative post-war British film industry, a leading lady required a precise upper-class English voice to be considered commercially viable. Hepburn worked to develop a highly stylized mid-Atlantic vocal pattern that masked her complicated continental background. It was characterized by delicate rhythmic precision and elongated vowels, a sound that belonged to no specific country but suggested immense wealth and international sophistication. When Hollywood discovered her for Roman Holiday, this vocal persona was treated as a prized commodity. It allowed her to play European princesses and elite American socialites with equal plausibility. Behind the fashion icon and the standing ovations, Hepburn's voice functioned as a carefully maintained shield, a beautiful manufactured protection that kept her wartime childhood buried beneath a layer of fabricated vocal perfection. 4. Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers famously claimed he had no authentic personality of his own. That psychological reality extended directly to his voice. Born into a nomadic family of variety show performers in Portsmouth, Sellers grew up surrounded by a shifting landscape of regional British accents. His natural resting speech was a standard, unpretentious middle-class English tone, which he viewed as a blank canvas with no professional value on its own. During his early work on the BBC's The Goon Show, Sellers recognized that the ability to surgically manipulate his voice was his primary ticket to survival. He did not simply change his accent for roles. He lived inside his manufactured voices, using them to erase his own identity entirely. From the bumbling French cadence of Inspector Clouseau to the cold German precision of Dr. Strangelove, Sellers treated accents as a clinical apparatus for masking an inner void. The consequences were severe and well documented. On film sets, directors frequently found it impossible to communicate with the real Peter Sellers because he refused to drop whichever character accent he was currently inhabiting. His vocal transformations blurred the line between performance and psychological instability, leaving co-stars and wives navigating a man who was perpetually hidden behind a manufactured persona. The studios valued his vocal instability because it generated enormous box office returns. They exploited his ability to function as a human chameleon while ignoring the psychological toll that constant self-erasure was taking. Sellers died having spent decades burying his true voice, leaving behind a vast archive of brilliant manufactured characters and a completely erased personal history. 5. James Mason. James Mason possessed one of the most recognizable voices in Hollywood history, a low-register, velvet-toned instrument that suggested sophistication and menace in equal measure. It was a carefully constructed fabrication, built to hide his Northern English origins. Mason grew up in a wealthy merchant family, surrounded by the distinct, heavy inflections of the north of England. In the early 20th century, a Northern accent was an absolute barrier to high-status classical acting, routinely dismissed by London theater elites as uncultured and unmarketable. Determined to conquer the stage, Mason attended Cambridge University and began a clinical process of vocal reconstruction. He stripped away the Northern vowels of his youth and replaced them with a highly calculated form of received pronunciation. Critically, he did not simply adopt a standard theatrical voice. He added a unique low-register silkiness to his speech, a quality that made him sound sophisticated, cynical, and quietly dangerous. That manufactured voice became his primary weapon in Hollywood. It allowed him to portray complex villains, intellectual leading men, and cold aristocrats in films including North by Northwest. Studios capitalized on his vocal delivery to project an aura of sinister British intelligence. Mason became the definitive voice of the sophisticated exile, a gilded persona entirely detached from his Yorkshire roots. Despite his immense success, his relationship with the British film establishment remained strained, partly because his voice served as a permanent reminder of the industry's artificial demands. His legendary tone was a calculated mask that secured his fame but permanently buried the boy from Huddersfield. We're halfway through. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Now let's keep going. 6. Terry Thomas. Terry Thomas was the ultimate caricature of the wealthy upper-class British cad, gap-toothed smile, monocle, booming aristocratic accent, the complete package. It was a brilliant clinical deception from beginning to end. He was born Thomas Terry Hoare Stevens in Finchley, North London, the son of a modest business manager. His natural environment was firmly middle class, entirely lacking the old-world elite pedigree he would later perform on screen. Early in his career, While working as a meat market clerk and a film extra, Thomas concluded that the British public's obsession with social hierarchy was a commercial opportunity. To achieve top-tier stardom, he needed to embody the ultimate elite archetype. Not approximate it, but become it completely. He legally changed his name. He adopted a silver cigarette holder. He trained his voice to deliver an exaggerated, pompous version of the high society Mayfair accent. The transformation was so precise that the public accepted it as genuine without question. He spent his career playing wealthy aristocrats, military officers, and lovable rogues in both British and American productions. Terry Thomas was beneath the comedic mask, a master businessman who successfully exploited the industry's class snobbery for his own advancement. His voice was a magnificent theatrical illusion. It required the permanent burial of his authentic origins to maintain it. 7. Bob Hope. Bob Hope is celebrated as a foundational icon of American comedy. His entire identity was a total linguistic construction built on top of an erased British childhood. He was born Leslie Towns Hope in Eltham, London, to a struggling working-class British family. His father was a stone cutter. His early speech was a traditional English accent shaped by the modest streets of post-Victorian London. When his family immigrated to Cleveland, Ohio, Leslie faced immediate alienation from American children because of his British accent. His native tongue was a social liability in the schoolyard, and he moved quickly to erase it, adapting his speech to a rapid-fire, aggressive American cadence as a matter of survival. As he moved into vaudeville and radio, he finalized the transformation by adopting a sharp nasal Midwestern delivery. He dropped the name Leslie for the more accessible Bob, and engineered a comedy style built entirely on speed and precision. The Hollywood studio system later manufactured him into the ultimate symbol of everyday American patriotism, hiding the fact that their golden boy was a British-born immigrant. Hope's fabricated American accent was so successful that the vast majority of his global audience lived and died without ever knowing he was English. He maintained this manufactured vocal identity for nearly a century. By completely burying his native British tongue, he achieved the version of the American dream that the studios were selling, but it required the total erasure of his original childhood self. 8. Anthony Newley. Anthony Newley was a brilliant singer, actor, and songwriter who achieved significant success on both the London stage and in Hollywood. His career required him to maintain a complex vocal double life for decades. Born in Hackney, East London, to a working-class single mother, Newley's natural voice was a fierce, authentic Cockney dialect. In the post-war entertainment industry, a raw East End accent was a professional death sentence for any actor aspiring to be taken seriously as a classical leading man. To navigate this rigid system, Newley developed a highly sophisticated, clean theatrical voice for his early acting roles. He clinically suppressed his natural Hackney vowels and adopted a polished, neutral British tone that allowed him to clear the industry's strict audition barriers. But Newley grew frustrated with the artificiality of the gilded cage he was expected to inhabit permanently. In a calculated creative rebellion, he eventually began blending his theatrical training with his authentic Cockney roots, creating a dramatically stylized singing voice that was hyper-enunciated and entirely his own. This unique vocal style went on to directly influence David Bowie. But in rooms with Hollywood executives and elite talk show hosts, Newley routinely reverted to his smooth, professional persona, the one that masked his impoverished street origins. Throughout his life, his voice remained a battleground between the working-class boy from Hackney. He spent his career constantly modulating his speech to maintain commercial viability, acutely aware of every compromise required to keep his name in lights. 9. David Niven. David Niven is remembered as the ultimate symbol of the dapper, aristocratic British officer and gentleman. His high society vocal identity was largely a studio-engineered fiction. While Niven came from a respectable family, his early life was marked by significant financial instability, the loss of his father at Gallipoli, and a chaotic youth. His natural speech was a standard upper-middle-class English tone, but it lacked the effortless royal prestige that Hollywood required. When Niven arrived in Hollywood in the 1930s as a penniless extra, Niven adjusted clinically, sharpening his articulation and adopting an ultra-refined, military-inflected transatlantic accent. He deliberately heightened his vocal delivery to sound like a member of the old world nobility, creating a persona that functioned as a permanent human advertisement for old-school British charm. This manufactured voice secured him a lucrative position as Hollywood's preferred Englishman, anchoring his roles in films including Around the World in 80 Days. He spent decades delivering witty anecdotes in a voice that suggested a lifetime of elite privilege, completely concealing the financial desperation and career anxieties that plagued his real life. The public fell in love with Niven's aristocratic warmth, unaware it was a highly managed performance designed for a specific box office market. He lived and died within this gilded cage of vocal perfection, writing best-selling memoirs that further polished the artificial image. His legendary accent secured his place in Hollywood history. It also required the permanent suppression of his unvarnished reality. 10. Stewart Granger. Stewart Granger was one of Hollywood's premier romantic swashbucklers in the 1940s and 50s. His entire public persona was built on clinical vocal erasure, compounded by the fact that he had to erase his real name as well. Born James Lablache Stewart in London, he grew up with a standard, unpretentious British accent that lacked the theatrical weight required for a romantic leading hero. Hollywood already had a legendary actor named James Stewart, and the confusion was commercially untenable. He changed his name to Stewart Granger and worked with vocal coaches to dramatically alter his speech. He abandoned his natural casual speaking habits and adopted a deep, resonant, high-status theatrical delivery designed to sound hyper-masculine, aristocratic, making him the ideal fit for epic historical films like Scaramouche. That manufactured voice broke him through the industry's casting barriers and turned him into a significant box office draw. But living inside an artificial persona created an intense creative void. Granger frequently complained that studios treated him as a handsome prop, valuing his booming manufactured voice and physical stature while ignoring his genuine artistic capabilities entirely. He achieved immense wealth and global fame by performing a stylized version of British nobility that was built for the screen. He spent his final years bitter about the artificial system that had consumed his real identity in the process. 11. Flora Robson. Dame Flora Robson was one of the most respected dramatic actresses of her generation, famed for a powerful, authoritative voice. That voice was a direct response to severe industry prejudice against where she was from. Born in South Shields in the northeast of England, Robson grew up with a natural northern regional inflection. In the early 20th century, the British theatrical establishment was openly hostile to northern accents, routinely telling young women that a regional tongue made them completely uncastable as serious dramatic leads. Faced with a total professional barrier, Robson entered RADA, where she was subjected to strict linguistic restructuring. She was required to clinically eradicate her natural South Shields accent and replace it with a severe, highly articulate form of received pronunciation. This was not about assimilation. It was about economic survival in an industry that systematically equated regional accents with a lack of intelligence and education. Her manufactured voice was so powerful and precisely executed that it allowed her to conquer both the London stage and Hollywood, where she was frequently cast as figures of commanding authority, including Queen Elizabeth I. To the public, she was the epitome of classical British dignity, her northern working-class roots completely buried beneath elite articulation. Despite her critical acclaim and eventual damehood, Robson's vocal journey remains one of the clearest documents of the era's class snobbery. She was forced to speak in a fabricated tongue as the basic condition for being allowed to practice her craft at all. Her legendary voice was a magnificent tool of survival and a permanent testament to an industry that refused to accept her authentic regional self. 12. Greer Garson. Greer Garson was the Queen of MGM during World War II, the embodiment of the aristocratic, high-status British leading woman. Born in a modest middle-class home in Manor Park, East London, Garson's real background had no connection whatsoever to the old-world nobility she regularly portrayed on screen. Her natural speech was a standard London accent, entirely distinct from the rolling royal cadence she would later exhibit in films. When Louis B. Mayer discovered her and brought her to Hollywood, MGM was determined to market her as the ultimate symbol of dignified upper-class British resilience, particularly for wartime productions like Mrs. Miniver. Garson underwent a meticulous vocal transformation, developing an extraordinarily stylized mid-Atlantic accent, engineered to make her sound like a permanent advertisement for the British aristocracy. The Deception was an unprecedented commercial success. It earned her 7 Academy Award nominations and made her one of the most profitable stars of the era. American audiences worshipped her voice as the definitive standard of European class and intellectual authority. 12 names, 12 manufactured voices, 12 careers built on the systematic burial of where these people actually came from. The industry didn't ask them to hide their accents as a preference. It was the condition of entry: a working-class dialect, a northern inflection, a European accent. These were not considered raw material to be shaped. They were considered disqualifying defects to be erased. What you heard today is not gossip or trivia. It's the documented record of how a global entertainment system used class, commerce, and cultural gatekeeping to determine whose authentic voice was allowed to exist. If this is the kind of history you want, the full record, not the curated version, subscribe to this channel. Every week we go back into the archive of old Hollywood and pull out what the studio system spent decades burying. Drop a comment. Which of these cases surprised you most? And share this with anyone who still thinks the Golden Age was simply golden. We'll see you in the next one.